On one half of California, rain turns to gold, and on the other, drought reigns. Hiding in plain sight is a $50 billion secret, a 400-mile wall of rock that divides oasis from wasteland, fortune from forgotten. It controls the water, the wealth, and the fate of 40 million people. But how did one mountain range shape everything Californians know and everything most Americans never see? Stretching for nearly 400 miles across California, the Sierra Nevada rises from rolling foothills to a fortress of stone and snow. This is not a gentle range. It is a true wall, sometimes 50, sometimes 80 miles wide, running almost the entire length of the state. Along its crest, more than 500 peaks soar above 12,000 feet, with Mount Whitney standing tallest at 14,505 feet, the highest point in the contiguous United States. From the air, the Sierra looks like a spine of white and gray, dividing green valleys from barren basins. But from the ground, it is a vertical world: granite cliffs, jagged ridges, and a steep eastern escarpment that plunges suddenly toward the desert below. The difference between the western and eastern slopes is sharp and immediate. On the west, the land rises gradually, climbing through oak woodlands and pine forests until it reaches the high country. On the east, the drop-off is abrupt, a sheer descent where the mountains seem to fall away in a single, dramatic sweep. This wall is more than just a backdrop to California's story. It is the main character. The Sierra Nevada does not just sit passively on the map. It commands the weather, dictates where rivers flow, and draws a hard line between plenty and scarcity. Every winter, storms rolling in from the Pacific slam into this barrier, unleashing torrents of rain and snow on the western slopes. The mountains catch and hold that water, storing it in a snowpack that can reach dozens of feet deep. All the while, the eastern side waits in silence, shielded from the storms by the very same peaks. The Sierra Nevada is the reason California has two faces, one lush and crowded, the other stark and empty. Its size, its height, and its shape have shaped everything that happens on either side. This is the wall that holds California's greatest secret and its greatest fortune, just out of reach for half the state. Every winter, the Pacific sends storm after storm crashing into California, but the Sierra Nevada decides who wins the lottery. On the western slopes, rain gauges in San Francisco catch about 22 inches a year. Just over the crest in Bishop, the number plunges to a mere 5 inches. That is not just a climate quirk. It is a wall drawing a line between abundance and drought. The difference is measured not just in inches, but in fortunes. Here is the trick. The Sierra Nevada snowpack is not just pretty scenery. As snow piles up, sometimes dozens of feet deep, it quietly stores up to 30% of the state's developed water supply. That snow does not melt all at once. It sits locked away in icy vaults and then trickles down through spring and summer, feeding rivers that run straight into the Central Valley. Without this natural reservoir, California's rivers would roar in winter and dry up by June. With it, the state gets a steady, predictable flow, enough to turn a semi-arid valley into the world's most productive farm belt. This is the hidden engine behind the numbers. In 2022, California's farms and ranches brought in $55.9 billion in cash receipts. Almonds, grapes, tomatoes, dairy, citrus, more than 250 different crops, all made possible by water that started as Sierra snow. The Central Valley alone grows more than 1/3 of America's vegetables and 2/3 of its fruits and nuts. Almost every bite of salad, every glass of orange juice, owes something to the snow that fell on that wall. On the other side, the story is reversed. With almost no rain and no snowpack, Eastern California is left out of this economic miracle. The wall does not just split the weather, it splits the wealth. The Central Valley's prosperity is built on a silent exchange: snow for gold, water for crops, winter storms for billions in food and jobs. Every dollar begins as a snowflake falling on the Sierra de Nevada. In January 1848, a single discovery at Sutter's Mill set off a human stampede. Gold gleaming in the riverbed pulled dreamers from every corner of the world toward the western edge of the Sierra Nevada. They poured into California by the tens of thousands, most through San Francisco, a town that ballooned from about 1,000 people to over 25,000 in just 2 years. The promise was simple: cross the land, reach the goldfields, strike it rich. But the mountains did not care about dreams. For those coming overland, the Sierra Nevada was more than a backdrop. It was a final test, and sometimes a death sentence. The most haunting example came just 2 years earlier. In the winter of 1846, 87 pioneers known as the Donner Party tried to cross the Sierra late in the season. Snow began falling before Halloween. Within days, the passes vanished under drifts so deep that wagons and horses disappeared. Trapped near what is now Donner Lake, the group built rough cabins and rationed what little they had. As weeks dragged on, supplies ran out. 17 set out on foot with makeshift snowshoes, desperate for help. Only a handful survived. By spring, when rescuers finally broke through, 47 were left alive. The rest had frozen or starved, and the survivors had done what they had to in order to endure. The Sierra Nevada had claimed 40 lives, not by malice, but by sheer unyielding force. For every fortune the wall delivered, it demanded a price in hardship and sometimes in blood. The lesson was clear. In California, nature set the rules, and survival often meant learning how to bend them, or how to capture the water that made life possible. Los Angeles was running out of water. By the early 1900s, the city's thirst had outgrown every local well, spring, and river. William Mulholland, the city's chief water engineer, saw only one answer: take water from the mountains far to the north. The Owens Valley, a green ribbon beneath the Sierra Nevada, had been quietly feeding ranches and Paiute farms for generations. Mulholland and his allies began buying land and water rights in secret, sending agents to pose as federal officials or local investors. Ranchers signed away their futures, not realizing their water would be piped hundreds of miles south. By 1913, the Los Angeles Aqueduct was finished. The Owens River was diverted, and the valley's fields began to dry up. Desperation grew in the valley as crops failed and dust storms replaced green pastures. By the 1920s, anger boiled over. On April 21st, 1924, before dawn, a group of masked men packed dynamite into the concrete at the Alabama gates, a key control point on the aqueduct north of Lone Pine. The blast ripped open the gates, sending a torrent of water rushing back into the empty Owens riverbed. For a brief moment, the valley reclaimed its river. Los Angeles crews rushed to repair the damage, but the message was unmistakable. This was no longer a quiet takeover. It was war. The struggle for Sierra water had become a battle between a growing metropolis and a valley fighting for survival. Death Valley sits just beyond the reach of the Sierra's shadow, holding the record for the hottest temperature ever reliably measured on Earth, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, set on July 10, 1913. A place so harsh that only a handful of people live there, and most come just to witness the extremes. Farther north, in the Owens Valley, the Manzanar camp once held more than 10,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. The government chose this isolated spot for a reason. It was empty, dry, and cut off from the rest of California by the same wall that divides the state's fortunes. Alpine County covers more than 700 square miles, but claims only about 1,200 residents, less than 2 people per square mile. Meanwhile, nearly 19 million people pack into the greater Los Angeles region, and another 8 million fill the Bay Area, all clustered on the green side of the divide. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach alone handle well over a third of all containerized imports into the United States, with nearly 40% of America's goods from Asia passing through these docks. Every container, every paycheck, every city lights up the map on the side of the wall that holds the water. But the system that built this wealth is under threat. Each spring, snow surveyors climb into the high Sierra, measuring the snowpack that feeds the entire machine. Their readings have grown more urgent. Climate models now project that by late this century, the Sierra's spring snowpack could shrink by 30 to 60% if emissions remain high. Less snow means less water, and less water means the balance that built California's $50 billion secret could tip. The wall that once guaranteed prosperity now stands as a warning. Everything here still depends on what falls from the sky and what the mountains choose to keep. Today, nearly 40 million Californians depend on water captured by a single mountain range. As droughts intensify and populations grow, that invisible dividing line shapes every future decision. Geography still decides who thrives and who struggles. In California, the wall is as powerful as ever. Thanks for watching.